Hello, bleeders and blank slates. My name is TVSkyne, and welcome to the Boss Designs of Bloodborne. This is a series of highly edited gameplay and analysis videos focusing on the boss enemies in FromSoft games. I play the games blind, or as blind as I can, and from the character design, level design, aesthetics, and story of each boss, I try to analyze and interpret my way to an interesting reading of the game as a whole. There you are. I see you.
Oh, good. Is he just gonna stand there gesturing at me? Because I tried to stab him and I did no damage. Bye.
For example, I have explored the four kings of New Londo in Dark Souls 1 as visual representations of the hollowness and corruption that absolute power causes to human beings, and I have read the Pursuer from Dark Souls 2 as a dark and distorted mirror version of the players themselves. My readings are sometimes psychological, sometimes based on art history, sometimes literary, and sometimes political, but my mission is to ensure that they are at least never boring.
Crush the intruder. Ouch. Stab. 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 Stab.
Okay, I don't know what the that weapon was, but you for having it. Now, because I'm playing the games blind, I almost always have to base my analyses on incomplete information, and on the random luck of my particular gameplay experience. Who knows what item descriptions I miss due to the drop rates? Who knows what areas pass me by because I do not discover the secret passages that lead there? There may be NPCs who are tremendously important that I just never happen to run into. But that is a feature, not a bug. This series is not about reading the wiki and the developer interviews and the art books to learn every fact and figure. It's not about exploring cut content or hidden secrets or Easter eggs. Other YouTubers are much better at that sort of thing than I am, and if I tried to compete with it, well, I wouldn't really be adding anything of value. So, this series is about playing the game and coming to understand it based only on that gameplay experience, however flawed or limited it may be. Hopefully, these limitations will lead to novel or interesting interpretations, ways to understand the game that haven't already been discussed to death through more traditional analysis. And if it doesn't, well, at least you'll have fun watching me get lost, fall into holes, and get scared along the way. The premise of this series is that I am playing through each game completely blind, but the Soulsborne games are a tremendously popular series. The internet is full of gameplay footage, lore videos, references, and analysis. There probably isn't a game that's been published in the last 10 years that hasn't at some point been compared to Dark Souls or called the Dark Souls of X. And so, if I have played through and analyzed Dark Souls 1 and Dark Souls 2, surely I must at some point have run into information about Bloodborne. And yes, this is true. There are things I know about this game ahead of time just by sheer force of cultural osmosis. I know, for example, that there is a gun replacing the parrying system from Dark Souls. I know that the game has no shields, except for a single joke shield that you're not actually supposed to use. I know that there is a boss called Father Gascoigne, and that he is difficult, although I don't know where he is or what he looks like. I know that there's an NPC called Alfred, and that he puts on a funny hat at one point and probably does some bad things? I mean, just on the basis that this is a Souls game after all. I know that a hunter must hunt is a meme, although I don't at this point know where it comes from or why it's so popular. And perhaps most importantly, I know that the game takes place in a dark Victorian/Gothic dystopian fantasy world, and that there are deep and dark Lovecraftian influences at play in its story. And besides all these details that I have absorbed ahead of time, there's also the practical problem that in order to create this series, I have to spoil myself. See, this series needs an intro, and since this series is about the bosses of Bloodborne, naturally the intro should have footage of the bosses in it, which means that I need to look at the bosses ahead of time and their cutscenes, which somewhat defeats the premise of a fully blind run. In previous seasons of the series, I have just said, well, screw it, seeing a boss cutscene with no context isn't that much of a spoiler, I guess I'll have to deal with it, but this time around, people in my community insisted that there is a big twist somewhere in the story, and that looking at the cutscenes ahead of time would spoil it for me in a bad way. Now, just knowing that there is a twist is, of course, in itself a bit of a spoiler, but in deference to their objections, I asked my community to help me pick out the footage that I would use to edit the intro in a way that wouldn't spoil me too badly or ruin the blind premise of the series. So, with all of that in mind, ballers, brawlers, and bastards, ladies, gentlemen, and those of more refined genders, hunters, monsters, and misfits, welcome to